Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for Litestar Office Hours on September 29th. We talk about using PDM instead of poetry throughout the Litestar organization, Python 3.12 support, and removing some packages on the Litestar base package. We hope you enjoy this one, and you can always catch us next week live or check the recording after. Hello, hello. How's
Hello.
everybody today? Hey,
I made it.
made it.
I think Cody will be joining us soon. I think at least he said so.
Well, you've had a busy week.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing quite a lot of work-related stuff and other adventures that have been going on. But I did manage to, I don't know if you've looked at it yet, I did manage to finish up the DTO code gen stuff. So hopefully,
I'm like a third of the way through the
right.
review. I'm excited
Well,
about it.
I think Cody already looked at it the last time I showed it to him, and he said the code wasn't as horrible as he thought it would be.
Hmm.
Have you been working on the PDM stuff? How's that going?
Um, Let me find the PR. Yes. I can't remember what the last thing I was stuck on was. Oh, it was that. I think it was that CI issue. With Oh no, I got past that. Never mind. I'm dumb. I just have to fix the dependencies after putting them into those nested groups, I think.
Sounds good.
Um,
I
yeah.
think I'm gonna try to wash some bugs this weekend. It looks like we have some that have accumulated during the last week. During this week. Like 5 or 6 or so. Oh, never mind. Peter already looked into this. And this as well.
Yeah, he's been
Yeah,
on
it's
it.
really great to have him back. So nice not just being the 3 of us or something that take this stuff on. Yeah, so I think now that I see Cody. Can we bring him up here? Does that work like that? Yeah, I hope it does. Hello.
Hey guys, sorry I'm a few minutes late.
You've been firefighting at work?
Yeah, I have actually. So I've managed to get some crazy SQL that is not cooperating at all, and so I've been on a call just kind of triaging and reformatting it and making it simpler. See if I can get the explain plan to be happy with what I have going on. So far, no luck though.
Well, then I guess it can wait another hour, right?
Well, yeah. So I have basically the test that I have running take about an hour to get to that point, and so I was rushing to get it going so that it would run while we were actually having this discussion. So I'm like hopeful that I'm going to have some good news when I get off the call, but maybe that's wishful thinking.
Well, yeah, let's hope. Let's hope you do.
And the sequel is getting on the 1,000+ lines long, and it's under some larger circumstances than what I typically see in terms of data volume, and so I'm having to do some tuning here. Which I probably should have done already. And the
Okay,
where
so
clauses all have things that are like um, they're not like where the column equals the other column. It's got some function based index like or function based call like coalesce or something like that. So I've been in the process of going through and adding function based indexes. So those clauses will actually be seen in the explain.
So it might not actually be a DuckDB problem, but a user
yes,
problem.
it's more than likely a user problem and not a DuckDB problem.
Hmm.
But I haven't figured out where the problem is. But it's definitely between the head and the keyboard.
Somewhere there.
Yes, most definitely.
DuckDB, yeah, you haven't heard about DuckDB yet? That's
Oh,
unbelievable.
let me get the message. Yeah, so DuckDB is a in-memory analytical database that functions very much like SQLite. So you think about how you connect to SQLite, you basically just give it a connect string and a file, a path where you want to write the database, or you can also use an in-memory SQLite. DuckDB has the exact same configuration. So once the Python process is over, then the in-memory database basically just goes away. And it's built on the Postgres dialect, but it adds quite a lot of HTAP and OLAP type of query options for you. So I'm using it particularly to do like an ETL process where we get lots of zip files that contain lots of CSVs within them. And somebody might give us like 500 CSVs or 1,000 or 2,000 CSVs or zip files that have many CSVs within them. And so we then use DuckDB to stage all that data into what we call like this canonical data model. And so we can accept many different versions of the files, many different versions of the zip, and so it basically stages them all into one central location, and then extracts that into one common format. And so we use DuckDB to do all the in-flight, intermediate, in-memory ETL, so that we don't have to have all these extra tables in Postgres or wherever we're going to stage the data ultimately or land it, and we end up basically cutting our requirements down from 100 tables that we might use just for ETL and transformations down to like 5 tables that we actually need to store everything in the final product. And maybe I can work up a simple example at some point soon that's not using company data for you guys to see how that ETL process works. But we use Litestar to upload all the files, and we use Lightstar and SAC and a couple other things to actually schedule and manage all the processing.
It would be really nice to be able to take a look at what you've been building there.
And just one last note on it, I guess I should say I'm not actually using the SQL Alchemy component for DuckDB. I'm actually using a library called AIO to take files that I have on my file system that represent, select statements or DDL statements to create things, and then use this orchestration that I built around AIO to dynamically execute the transformations, and then that actually goes into something that is stored in the repository and uses the SQL Alchemy classes. So how's everybody's week been?
Busy. I mean,
I hear you. I have been traveling a lot, and it's finally my travels are over, at least for the short term, and so I'm trying to dig out of the pile of work that's been sitting around.
Out
Cool.
AOE2. What's that? Oh,
Age of
isn't that
Empires.
like super old?
Yeah.
No way, you don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, not super old, but I mean, four is out.
So, Yannick, tell us a little bit about the DTO CodeGen PR that's out there. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I didn't even realize that you were still wrenching on this behind the scenes, and then all of a sudden I see the good news this morning.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's pretty much from the essence. It hasn't changed much since you've last looked at it. I've just cleaned it up a bit more. Added some more test cases. I added a feature flag in the DTO config and in the application, and yeah, added some documentation and comments to make it all a bit nicer, a bit more understandable. But yeah, functionally, it's pretty much there. And yeah, well, if someone dares to review it, we can maybe get it in. Yeah, so for the uninitiated, I have been working on code generation for DTOs for quite a while now. Probably mentioned that already in the last office hours and in the podcast as well. And the idea is that we use DTOs for a lot of things in Litestar. For example, the secret alchemy integration or just general handling of, well, data. But there is some performance overhead involved because we're basically doing a round trip from the structuring and destructuring, which isn't ideal. And the idea was that we could maybe get this down to a bare minimum of overhead for that by generating very efficient Python code that could then perform these transformations. And instead of doing it dynamically, we could do it statically. So instead of, if you have a DTO, we would previously loop over all the fields and then check if, I don't know, a field needs to be renamed and then look up that name and then store that in a dictionary. But since we know all this information beforehand and we know all the fields, we could, for example, unroll that loop and just have the renamed strings in there as a constant. And so that's one thing that's, that's one part of the code that isn't there anymore, which, I mean, no code is always faster than, well, everything else. So, and the results have been quite good, I would say. There is still some overhead involved, obviously, because we're still doing encoding from here to there, but it's a lot faster. I think in the worst case, we're like 3 times faster, and in the best, it's like 6 or so, which is quite significant in some cases. And I'm sure there's still a performance left
And
that we can
where
do.
would that performance
And
impact be seen? Is that like something that you see every request, or something in startup, or how does that performance improvement manifest
so
itself?
for startup, depending on how we go about this, for startup at the moment, it will actually be a bit slower because it has to generate all these functions. We generate like 6 or 7 functions for every DTO. So that's, I don't know, depending on how many DTOs you have, it's quite a lot. I'm thinking if we might want to change that so that these functions only get generated once they're needed. But we'll have to do some real world testing and see how much that actually impacts performance. But it would, so every request that you're using that has DTOs would become faster. Because, well, instead of having a transformation that takes like, well, it's just the overhead. You're paying the cost for these very highly dynamic transformations on every request. So the less cost you're paying for that, the better for your application. And it's basically, I mean, right now you can think of it as like, if you take in the data and then you parse it using message spec and you have a struct, and after that you do take the struct again and parse it again with message spec. That's a very, very simplified version of what we're doing at the moment. And this PR attempts to reduce this process to an absolute minimum, so that only the bare minimum steps that are involved will actually get executed.
And I guess really to your point about it there being a cost at startup, it really probably is not noticeable unless you have a significant number of DTOs and models. And so maybe if there is something like that, and we're starting to see people,
I actually
mention
don't know.
startup time, maybe there's.
I haven't checked this at all. I have no idea how much this startup time this will be. I don't have any idea. I mean, it's not like it's gonna take a few seconds or something like that. But if you have, I don't know, 100 DTOs or something, then you would generate like 700 functions for that. That might take a while.
Yeah, I still, it doesn't sound like it's, I mean, unless there's many of them, it's probably not significant.
No, it's not. It's probably going to be like a few. In the worst case, it's going to be like a second or so, maybe, if you have a really high amount of DTOs. But yeah, it's probably also something we can look into. If it turns out to be a problem, we can optimize that, and maybe we can make it lazily evaluated or something. That's a problem I'm quite sure we will be able to fix. And so yeah, right now this will be behind a feature flag, so it will be introduced as an experimental feature. So by default, the standard DTO backend will be used for everything. And then you can opt in. You can either set a flag on the Litestar application itself. Then it will just use this new backend for everything by default. But you can also do it on a per DTO basis. So you can add this flag to the DTO config and just say use the experimental backend. And that will override the flag you set on the application. So you have full control for experimentation. And the idea was that we, could just have them both in parallel for a while and see how it goes, what people's impressions are, if I don't know, if there's a lot of problems with this approach. So I'm not sure yet if there will be, and if it's feasible to maintain as well, if it's worth it, because it is harder to maintain and reason about. I mean, the other approach also isn't super straightforward. It's quite complicated, quite a lot of nested recursive function calls and all that. But at least it's all written out there, and it's not like this huge, complicated intermediate step in there as well that writes some Python code and then does stuff with it. And also,
And you got,
even if you look at the code that it's being generated, it's really ugly code because it does a lot of performance trickery that you normally wouldn't write by hand because it doesn't make sense to do so. But since we're not writing this by hand, we can use these little tricks. So even if you look at it, it's not very pretty. It's not very easy to debug. So this is something I also want to get a feeling for how hard it is to maintain that. And yeah, then after a while we see if it's worth it, and maybe we then switch to this as a default backend.
and you got this hidden behind a feature flag, or did I see there were? I saw that there was like an experimental feature thing that you were looking to add in.
Yeah, so I've added a new parameter to the Litestar class, which is called, I forgot how it's called. I think it's like experimental features. Yeah, so it's an iterable that takes enums, and we have a new enum in the application config that's just experimental features. For now, it's just the DTO code gen, but I thought this was a good way to do this in case we might want to add more experimental features in the future. So you can just pass a list of experimental features that you want to have for your application.
I got it. So you actually pass in the feature that you would like to enable, and I guess this is not too dissimilar to the feature flag or future flag that was in SQL Alchemy. or is in
Mhm.
SQL Alchemy. So it's kind
Yeah.
of cool.
Yeah, that, and then you can also do the same thing on the DTO config. There is a new Boolean value that you can set. That's experimental codegen backend. You can set that to true, and then it will also enable the codegen backend for that DTO only, which is quite useful because we do the backends per DTO. Every DTO gets its own backend. So we can do that on a per DTO basis. So if you have something, I don't know, if you have an edge case or something like that where the codegen backend doesn't work, or for some reason it performs really badly, then you can just switch it off for one DTO. And the other way around as well, you can just selectively enable it for one particular DTO.
Really cool. So I'm going to take a look at this and review it today.
Have at it.
Cool stuff. There was one other thing. It's been a busy week, and not necessarily for. I haven't had enough time to devote to Lightstar that I normally would. One of the things that I did see in the chat though was around Faker. Is there a TLDR on the Faker things that we've been discussing?
I think it was it
Well,
the
well, yeah.
weight
So
of
some
it?
of the things that
It
I've
was a
noticed is
heavy
that, well, when I profile my
thing.
own application, I've noticed that Faker is one of the larger things and slower imports that I have. And there's a couple of things that I think we could do. One, there's probably ways that we could lazy load Faker or even make it optional, because I think you really only need it for the Open API code gen samples if you've got that turned on. So that's one thing, but there may be other ways to optimize it too. And I think there's also other libraries out there. And so maybe I didn't catch it all.
Yes, someone suggested that we use a different library. I forgot what it was called. Yeah,
Nemesis.
that one.
Mimesis.
Which,
yeah, I probably butchered that.
yeah,
Yeah, I think Nikita is
turns
like
out
a
he's
maintainer
a
of it.
maintainer of that.
He also
so, and he
recommended
would be
it.
very happy to help us integrate.
Yeah.
And the other guy that maintains it also chimed in and said he would love to help us migrate to that, which is faster, which is not as heavy as Faker, and it's supposedly quite a lot faster as well, especially for batch data generation. And that's all happened in Polyfactory. So the idea would be to just switch out Faker there. And the other part of that discussion was basically what you said as well, that maybe we make it optional, and that was related to Polyfactory. So we were talking about maybe making Polyfactory an extra that you can install. Because I know that not everyone uses the Open API examples. I, for one, don't even use Open API. So
Right. And I mean, in production,
is,
I think it's likely that you might want to totally disable the actual schema documentation. And so it makes sense to be able to trend that the dependency.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the idea was if we have this added Polyfactory thing, then we use it, and if not, we just don't generate the examples. The rest of the Open API stuff would still work without it. Oh, performance comparison. Just that.
Wow, that's significantly
so
factor.
Yeah, that is quite significant. And also, I think there was someone brought up that it's typed better, which isn't surprising if Nikita is working on that.
Yep, that doesn't surprise me.
Uniqueness, what's that? Is that the... Does this benchmark imply that Faker is only unique in 33% of the cases?
Yep, I would.
Oh.
So I've noticed that at least for Faker, when I've had to generate large quantities of data, it didn't generate enough uniqueness for me. And so I even had to turn on like all the locales for names.
Uh-huh.
And it still cycled through them in not too
Interesting.
much time. This was years ago.
I mean, this does suggest that it's still an issue. And if 1 million full names, isn't it? It's not that much.
No, it's really not. And so it's not a great thing for batch data, but I didn't realize it was that bad.
Of the type of writing my own fake data. Well, I think this is more about if you have really big batches. And I don't know if you want to write out 1 million unique names yourself. I mean, you could probably, but I feel like that's gonna take a while.
And so there was one other library that I had seen on Reddit as well, and I think it managed to make its way into our chat channel. It was around a CLI tool. Was it like Kappa or something like that?
Yeah, I think Jacob brought that up, right? The Kappa thing? I haven't actually looked at it yet.
Yes. I think it's a clap inspired, which is like a Rust CLI library or crate. I don't know what the right word is. Just another.
It looks like it's kind of
click.
like Typer in
I
terms
think
of like how
Yuri
you
tried it.
basically define like a data class or something for your arguments. Am I reading it incorrectly?
Yeah, it. I don't know. I'm trying to look at Typer. I've never gotten to use it. I've not gotten to use it yet.
Looks very cool, and it has rich support.
Well, that's nice. So
Does anybody have anything they would like to share? Happy points from the week with Lightstar, non-Lightstar related. I guess it doesn't even have to be happy points. If you've got unhappy points, we'd like to hear them too.
I'd be more happy to hear about happy points, though. So one other thing that I have been playing around, I mean, we recently quite significantly sped up our test suite by removing all the SQL Alchemy related stuff. But I think we can do better. At least we can make it a bit less complicated. So one issue, I think we already have like 2 open PRs for this that deal with the Pydantic dependency, because we kind of have to test for Pydantic 1 and Pydantic 2 and whatnot. And we install different versions of this. And one thing that I ran into is that Pydantic itself, if you install Pydantic, it includes, if you install Pydantic 2, it includes Pydantic 1. So you can run them in parallel. We don't support that because if we have Pydantic 2 installed, we just use everything Pydantic 2 and make the Pydantic 1 features not available. But that's not actually necessary. We can easily support both at the same time. We just need to change the way we import stuff. And I think it would also be very easy to test like this. So because Pydantic 1 is included in Pydantic 2, we only need to include Pydantic 2. And, well, that's fairly trivial then, right? If we have Pydantic 2 installed, then we can just enable features for Pydantic 1 and 2. And if only 1 is installed, we only enable the features for Pydantic 1. Which would also mean we can get rid of the Pydantic 1 dependency for our testing and don't have to use this complex matrix stuff and poetry, hackery, and workarounds to get it somewhat working. I think that's something we should consider doing.
Agree. And speaking of pedantic, and I really haven't thought too much about this, but what do you guys think about like should we continue to support V1 and V2 for an indefinite amount of time, or is there a point in time where like Lightstar 3 should be pedantic
I
2
don't
only
know.
or something like that?
I don't know what their policy is for support. I actually have no idea. Are they planning to support it? Is there like already a deadline set for Pedantic 1?
V1 is active for like a year, I think, after
Oh, I mean, that's
V2 is
reasonable.
out.
And that would have to be a major version that where we would drop that support. So it might not be. So if they, I'm assuming that we're going to have 3.0 out before a year. So maybe
Yeah.
it's not a 3.0 thing.
Well, I don't know, maybe it could be. So if we were to, I mean, we will support version 2 until version 4 is out. So if version 2 supports Lightstar, if Lightstar 1 supports Pedantic 1, then you just use Lightstar 2 instead of 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like that's reasonable. I mean, for new projects, you're most likely not going to use Pedantic 1 anyway, right?
I think that sounds reasonable to me, but maybe not.
Well, maybe we should, I don't know, maybe we should put this out there once we start planning towards version 3 and then see what people are thinking. But it's not a huge
I think
struggle to
Yuri saw me
maintain.
mention AIO SQL in the chat and decided to join today. That was a joke, by the way. There's a sarcasm tag you can't see on my face or my non-typing. For those that don't know, he's got an awesome library that adds some Alembic support there, but I just happened to run across it one day. Just a normal green picture.
Yeah, I got used to that as well.
All right. Well, maybe we can put it back. Oh, I see. Oh, my GitHub picture.
Oh yeah, I thought he's talking about the Discord one as well.
I think it's the one with my glasses.
Yeah, that's the one. Well, don't change it back now. That's gonna be even more confusing. Like you should only be allowed to change that like once a year. So
I figured I would be a little bit more professional, so I just took a headshot in a bar, apparently, and that's professional.
yeah, that's way more professional than sunglasses. I can see your reasoning. Should I also take a more professional picture than my half visible bad wordplay? Is that a
I'm not.
requirement now?
So, what is the actual wordplay there? I haven't clicked on it yet to see all of it.
So in theory, I think in GitHub you can see the full picture somewhere if you click on something. So the full picture says, "Are you going to Scarborough Fair?" And then it has like the stuff below it. It shows pictures of parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
Got it.
I don't know. I did that like 10 or 15 years ago, and I found it incredibly funny, and I just kept it around since because I've gotten used to it, you know?
Speaking of not changing anything for 10 or 15 years, you should go look at my Twitter profile to see what I look like as a kid.
As a kid.
Yeah, I'll go ping it here in the chat so you guys can see me without a beard.
Well, actually, I can't because I don't have an account there.
Oh, you can't even see it won't even let
No.
you see the profile now?
Oh, but you can see the preview in Discord. Oh, you look younger, which isn't surprising, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite a bit younger.
I mean, how old is
I think I'm like Coffee's age.
Oh. Yeah, that is quite a bit younger.
So 20
I was
something.
thinking more like 18. No, I think I was like 26.
Oh.
Hello, I have a small question. I apologize if you already talked about it. It's about the default packages installed by Litestar. I don't know if there is I know we talked about it in the members chat, but I don't know if there is an issue that is tracking the state of what are the extras, what are the minimum packages we want to install, etc. And sorry for my accent.
Oh, no worries. We can understand you.
No, it's perfect, man, and I'm glad you're able to join today. We haven't really explicitly talked about that, but I think that's a good thing. We kind of talked about it in a couple of different things, but not really as a overall topic. But from my perspective, I'd like to figure out if there's a minimal set of packages we can get to kind of slim down some things, because I think there's in a few cases, like we already mentioned, there's extras that may not be needed that are included. Polyfactory being one of them. Maybe some other things as well. And so making that whole thing easier would be great. And obviously, a slimmer profile of a Lightstar package would be good as well.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we should only include those packages that actually are needed to run, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
And like
those-
an onion, if you want more features, you add some extras. I don't have the knowledge of deep enough knowledge of the library yet to know all that is possible. So it's kind of hard to figure out which
So-
parts are movable or not. See what I mean?
Yeah, so in theory, for the bare minimum to run, we only need any IO and message spec.
Which is cool.
That's it.
Yeah, and there's that JSON beautifier that I would like to make optional as well. I think there's that actually has some other extras too, if I remember correctly. But we really don't need too many, other than of course Uvicorn or whatever you're going to run it on top of.
But we also have another issue, and this is the bug from Poetry, which adds random required dependencies. Because right now we have Alembic and SQL Alchemy and PyYAML as required dependencies, which are not required dependencies. But yeah.
And that's a Poetry bug?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we want to switch to PDM. The Poetry bug has been open for like now 1.5 years now, and so it's basically if you have, I forgot what it was. It's like if you have an optional dependency that's also a required dependency in an optional development extra, then it will export that as a required dependency. So yeah, and it doesn't seem like they will be fixing that anytime soon.
Yeah. After I saw those leaking dependencies installed on the base. Maybe
Yeah.
want to finish
Yeah,
that PDM
it's really
thing
not good.
even more.
Yeah, so yeah, I think we should start tracking the dependency stuff and try to slim it down. I'm not sure if we can do everything before the next major version. I think what we need to keep until the next major version is HTTPX and Polyfactory. We need to keep those. HTTPX we use for the testing client and Polyfactory we use for generating open API examples. So we can't get rid of them without breaking stuff. So we'll have to keep them until 3.0, but they should definitely go. And the other things we could actually start making optional now, like the fast query parsers. We could just use that as a drop-in replacement because it is a drop-in replacement for the standard library stuff. Multi-dict could also be optional because we extend from it, and we could just, I mean, we already have a pure Python multi-dict implementation. We could just use that. And if it's installed, I mean, we can still do it put it in the standard package. And if it's in the standard package, then it would be faster. But yeah.
I was just about to say this. The standard package sounds like a good idea there.
Yeah, I mean it's common practice for a lot of Python packages, right? To put like speedups and things that are not necessarily required in the standard package. I think UVcorn does it like this as well.
Yuri, one thing that we were talking about, I think before you joined, was Kappa, and I specifically remember you mentioned you created a simple little app. What were your thoughts on that? Maybe the rest of the guys here would like to hear it.
It's just amazing. I don't know how I used Click. I love Click. I used it a lot, but the API of Kappa is very, very, very neat. It's entirely declarative, so and the to say that the functions you declare, you don't have to put some decorators everywhere. So for testing, it's much easier. At least for me to reason about it, it's way easier than Click. But I have to admit I only tested it for like 2 hours today, so it's a pretty new library. So
Well, I'm intrigued. It looks really cool.
yeah, I don't know the Rust equivalent because I don't program in Rust, but it looks very, very cool.
Wait, it's showing me as the owner.
Sorry?
I just saw a chat in the channel. It's something about I'm the sole owner somehow of the Litestar org. What is this?
I'm sorry, that's my doing. So for some reason PyPy only shows the first author as the author because it doesn't show multiple authors. And when I updated the PyProject channel, I just sorted our names alphabetically, and well, you're the first one
Okay,
in the list. Yeah.
fun stuff.
So Kappa is written. No, wait. You said something about Rust. It's not written in Rust, right?
All in
No, it's not written in Rust, but it's the equivalent of clap, which is in Rust.
Ah, yeah, got it.
And it's the same spirit, which means that you declare pretty much everything declaratively.
Well, I
Which
don't
I
know.
think it's a good idea, and you have type-ins as well. So I think it's well,
I've tried so many command line utility tools over the years, and I've never found something that I found more practical than Click. I mean, there are some nice ideas, but I don't know, at the end of the day, Click just works and
Yeah,
does what it's
Click
supposed to
just
do.
works. I think it goes kind of complicated with it's kind of complicated with Click when you have groups and you want to test things, and when you're used to it and you're using the library for a long time, I mean it's easier, but from
Maybe I'm
reading the
just
docs
used
and
to
just testing Kappa for a few hours, it looks very promising, I think.
Well, yeah, the group thing in Click isn't all that intuitive, I have to admit that. I mean, if you look at what we're
Yeah, and the
doing with...
click runner, when you have to invoke things, and the fact that the functions you have to decorate them, you can't test them directly. So it's
Oh yeah, that's true. That's something I've always been doing. I've always been writing two functions for the CLI commands.
uh,
So one
uh,
that just grabs the other, so I can test the actual thing more easily. Which is, yeah, it's not a great pattern. That's true.
no,
And
you end
also,
up testing click functions with the click runner, and you sometimes when you have exceptions that they are not raised properly, so you have to go inside the click runner to see what is the real output of the click function, and it's not practical.
yeah, that is true. And if you look at what we're doing with Click, I mean, we have to involve quite a bit of weird workarounds and stuff to get our CLI to work the way we want it to. I mean, if there's a better way to do that, I would be very happy about that. Yeah, maybe I'll look into it.
I'll try to see if I can come up with a small Litestar version of the CLI with Kappa, just to see if it's possible
That would be
or
great, yeah.
not too complicated, and if it simplifies things.
Very cool. And I guess I've been on the move for the past couple of weeks, but one of the things I wanted to actually talk to you about was how did the mini Jinja integration roll out? I mean, I know that it's there, but I haven't actually tested it personally. What are your thoughts now that you've kind of had it out there for a little bit and had a chance to use it?
I'm not sure I understood the change on what?
Mini Jinja or
Mini Jinja.
sorry, that's my southern accent coming out thick very quick.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I tested it a little bit, but it's the well. I came to Litestar because I had some quite big application in Fast API I wanted to translate for various reasons, and most of the applications are very heavy using Jinja templates. So it's not using OpenAPI or JSON stuff. And I was intrigued by Mini Jinja because it's the same author than Jinja, and there is a port in Python through PyO3. And the only thing is that I have my templates are so big that and the language is not IPASU, it's not equivalent. You have some little subtleties where you have to change stuff. So I didn't test it fully on a real project, the mini Jita stuff, but I think it works fine, and I think it would be easier for someone to test on a new project where you don't have some filters or stuff like that embedded in Jinja, and it's kind of complicated to make the move to mini Jinja. See what I mean?
100%. I'll have to give it a shot because I actually don't have any Jinja templates in my application at the moment, but I was looking at trying to do a couple of things, specifically maybe for like HTMX integration or something like
Yeah.
that, and I'll have to give it a try. Does anyone in the
Also
audience have
runs
any
in the
questions?
browser, I see.
Yeah, that's actually that's one of the things that I noticed as well.
That's cool.
No, we've only got a few minutes left, but any questions from the audience?
The what?
Isn't that like the meat thing?
Shawarma is Lebanese meat or Turkish meat, no?
Yeah, well, I'm in Germany, so we don't have that here. In Germany, we only have Döner, which is
Yeah. Well, I think it's pretty much the same, no?
yeah. It's basically that, just served a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Well, I'm officially hungry now.
Yeah.
Spices we go. Which is turkey now? I don't think you can get that with turkey. I mean, we have quite a few with chicken here, so, which is basically like
Turkey is a chicken, no?
yeah. I mean, the chicken is a very small turkey, maybe.
Indeed, it did.
What?
Seems-
What kind of questions are these?
It may not be English
Uh,
otherwise, but absolutely. I always think
good
about
good
the
point.
Constantinople. It's like the first thing that I think about when I wake up.
I'm always so confused when I have to work on code that's not in English, but like it's in German or something. I already don't like that.
Oh, that reminds me of an SAP database. Guys, I don't know if you've ever seen an SAP database, but there's like 50,000 tables, and they're named with like German initialism. So it's like 3 letters and numbers, and you need like a decoder ring to figure out what's going on. I'm not exaggerating when I say 50,000 tables in a schema. I think it literally might be 100,000. Yeah, that one could stay in your circle. I don't know if you drew that circle or not, but
No.
What are you
I
doing
found
with
it.
100,000 tables? Like, are you,
so
it sounds to
these
me like
large
someone.
ERP systems have that. Like EBS by Oracle has, one schema has 30,000 tables, 30,000 packages. Another schema might have 50,000, and then they have everything synonymed into like one master schema called apps that has 100,000 plus, all right there.
I think it's made on purpose to feed the consultants yearly or over the years, no?
Yep, definitely. See, now he's not commenting on that, so I see this as confirmed.
Wait, I'm sorry, I missed that. I think I was reading about the Ottoman Empire. What's going on? I missed that last comment though. Something about yearly.
No, I just said that the guys who are developing those schema with hundreds of, thousands of tables, often you end up having, consultants or big consulting firms, like for years, just digging in the code to know what's going on. And sometimes
Like me.
you wonder if it's made on purpose.
So I guess full disclosure, I worked for 8 years in big consulting doing exactly this.
Yeah. That's why I said you didn't comment on this, so
Yes.
I've read this as confirmation that this is indeed the case.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's hard to, at least in ERP land, right? You're trying to run like an oil pipeline. They have to account for the taxation and all the things that go along with how you need to expense the oil in the pipeline as it goes through every territory. And so there's a huge number of like tables and things just to drive all those like configurations so they can track that, okay, I'm at this section of the pipeline, it needs to be taxed X rate, and at this section it needs to be taxed Y rate, and this value means I got to distribute these funds to these. Anyway, it gets insanely complicated, and so my only guess is that I think that it's hard to figure all that out up front, and so they come up with these base tables. Okay, the first 50,000, right? The good 50,000, and then you immediately get to the point where like, oh crap, I didn't have it here, and I can't add this table, so here comes 50,001, and so before you know it, you end up having this spaghetti mess, and it's impossible to manage.
Impressive.
Impressive or scary?
Impressively complicated.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think that's it for this week. Unless anybody has anything else.
Looks
Okay.
like at least one of my DuckDB issues is now solved, guys. So one of the problems I had is gone.
Good news. Well, we'll see everybody next week, next
Absolutely.
Friday, same time, same place.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye, guys. Have a good
Maybe.
week.
Thank you all.
All right. All right, everybody. That wraps up the September 29th office hours for Litestar. We hope you enjoyed the talks. If you'd like to join us in person, you can join the Discord. Check the events tab and it'll have a time and which channel to join. You can come ask questions and chat, raise your hand to speak, or just listen along and hang out. Have a good one.